What's going on, guys? Jason Maxwell here, and today we're talking core training. Now, if you want to get a six-pack, the process is pretty simple. All you have to do is do a couple planks and diet, and voila, when you're lean enough, you're going to have a six-pack. But not all six-packs are created equal. You can have a six-pack that looks great, but you can feel like shit at the same time. You can have a sore back, you can be in pain, and you're not going to have that strong core. I say have the show and have the go. Get lean enough to have a six-pack, but build the six-pack in a way that you would train your core like an athlete would train their core. That way you can have a six-pack that's strong, that allows you to be pain-free. You're going to have a strong back, you're going to have a strong core, and it's going to look strong. It's going to have that dense muscle with the V-line. That's what you want. That's the kind of core that you want to have. And today, I'm going to tell you how to do it. So I have a list of exercises that I'm going to read to you, and they are my favorite core exercises. But here's the thing. What you're going to do is you're going to start off at the start. You're going to start with the easiest exercises, and then you're going to work your way up to some level 4 and level 5 exercises, or what I call level 4 and level 5 exercises. Because a lot of people, they see something like crazy on Instagram or YouTube, and then they go and they do it. And what happens? They probably end up getting injured, or they just don't do it properly, and they're not going to get the results that they wanted because they didn't start at the beginning. So you need to work your way up here, build that core strength. And like everything, you got to be consistent and keep adding on to the foundation. So you start with the foundation, work your way up until you're at the top of the pyramid. So I like to split up my core exercises as core stabilization and then core dynamic stabilization. And each time you train your core, you're going to use a stabilization exercise and a dynamic stabilization exercise. Use those two exercises every time you train your core, and then work your way up through the levels and progress to harder and harder exercises as you get stronger. So I'm going to start out with my pre-level 1 exercises. So this is if you have just started training, or if you have a super weak core, you're going to start out with these exercises. And if you don't know how to do any of these exercises, just do a simple search on YouTube so you can see them. And I'll explain some of them if they're easy to explain. So for your pre-level 1 core stabilization exercises, you have dying bugs, which are essentially you lay against a wall and you put your hands against the wall and then you kind of tap your heels down. Definitely check out a video of that, as well as the other pre-level 1 exercise is just a modified plank or a modified side plank. Essentially all that is instead of doing a plank on the floor, your feet are going to be on the floor, but your elbows are going to be raised up on a chair or something. And this is if you have a super weak core. Next, for our pre-level ones for dynamic stabilization, we're going to do baby crawls, which are exactly how they sound. You're just crawling on your hands and your knees. As we get older, we start to lose these fundamental movement patterns, and baby crawls are fundamental. If you don't know how to do a baby crawl anymore, you have some problems. And that's why I recommend doing baby crawls as a pre-level 1 dynamic stabilization exercise. Another dynamic stabilization exercise, the pre-level 1, is half kneeling kettlebell halo. So you're going to be kneeling on one knee, you're going to hold a kettlebell by the horns upside down, and you're going to rotate it around your head, trying to maintain perfect posture and only moving your hands around your head, kind of drawing a halo around your head with that kettlebell. It looks like a pretty crazy exercise. Like, what does that do? It works great for your shoulders, but it also works great for your core and helping balance it all the way around. Once you've mastered these pre-level ones, or if you just know that you're not in the pre-level 1, we're going to go on to our level 1 exercises. So for our core stabilization exercises, our level 1 exercises are just simple planks and side planks. Everyone knows how to do those, but make sure you're doing them properly with a perfect alignment. You want that spine to be pretty neutral. What that means is you're not bending to one side or the other or sagging the hips or having your ass too high in the air. For your dynamic stabilization exercises, we have 3 of them. We have forward crawl, so it's essentially crawling like a baby, but you're not allowing your knees to touch the floor. So you're crawling on the balls of your feet and on your hands. It's harder than it sounds, and it is an amazing core exercise. This one is going to be the foundation of your core exercises because it's so beneficial. The key here is to try not to rock back and forth. You want to try to stay neutral and not have the body move as minimal as possible. So the best way to do this is pretend that you have an open cup of coffee on your back and you're crawling and you don't want that coffee to fall off. That's how you're going to do it. Next is a plank and pull down, as well as a side plank in row. So a plank and pull down is you're holding a plank, but then you have a cable in your hand and you're pulling down as if you're doing a lat pull down, but you're on the floor. And a side plank and row is you're holding a side plank and it's as if you're rowing with the top arm that's not. So the arm that's on the ground is on the ground, and then the arm that's on the top, instead of having it at the side or in the air, you're holding a cable and you're rowing. So that's it for the level 1 exercises. Now we're going to move on to level 2. So level 2 core stabilization exercises, I like to use a plank with just one leg elevated or a side plank with the top leg raised. These are much harder than they look, especially the side plank with the top leg raised. But your goal here is you're changing your points of contact, so you have a little bit of anti-rotation training in there as well, specifically for the plank with one leg elevated, and it's just making the exercise more difficult. For dynamic stabilization level 2, we have one exercise, which is farmer carries. Now, farmer carries, they could be level 1 if you have them light, but I'm talking heavy farmer carries. So essentially, you're standing up perfectly straight, great posture, and at the sides, you're going to be holding heavy dumbbells and basically as heavy as possible. And then you're going to walk like 30 meters with that weight in the hands, and you're going to try not to fall sideways. You're going to try to have perfect form. If you do this correctly, it's a great core exercise. Now moving on to our level 3 exercises. For stabilization, we have feet elevated planks and feet elevated side planks. So it's the same as your regular old plank, but your feet are going to be elevated. For dynamic stabilization core exercises, level 3, we have Swiss ball mountain climbers and mountain climbers with slides on the feet. So the Swiss ball mountain climbers, what you do is you have your hands on a Swiss ball, and then you do mountain climbers with your lower body. The key here is I like to do them slower, and then that way you're stabilizing the core the whole time instead of just doing them super quick. Once you're able to stabilize the core, you can do them faster, and that's going to increase the difficulty of the exercise. The mountain climbers with the slides are just, you have like, if you've seen those furniture movers that slide on carpet, you're going to put those on your feet, and then you're going to go down on your hands, and then you're going to do mountain climbers by sliding your feet. But the goal here is to still try to have that neutral spine. Don't curl up in a ball, and stabilize that core as you're moving the legs on the sliders, and then that way you're going to hit the core more instead of it just being a cardio exercise. Great exercise, a lot of fun. I think a lot of you are going to like it. Now moving on to our level 4 exercises for core stabilization, we have feet elevated plank with one leg elevated and feet elevated side plank with one leg elevated. It's the same as the one from the floor, but your feet are elevated. Boom. It's a bit harder when your feet are elevated. Spoiler. For dynamic stabilization, we have half kneeling cable chops and kneeling cable chops. So you take a cable and you're going to chop down. It's a great exercise, and you're kind of going diagonally across that core, and you get a little bit of everything in there. You get the anti-rotation, you get the stabilization, and it's just dynamic. Hence why we call it dynamic stabilization. So half kneeling means you're on one knee, and kneeling means you're on both knees. Next, for our level 5 exercises, and these are la creme de la creme. So we have our level 5 core stabilization. It's basically feet elevated plank, but your feet are on a Swiss ball. So that Swiss ball is moving all over the place. You're going to try to stabilize and make sure that you're not moving. Our other level 5 is feet elevated side plank with the feet on the Swiss ball. Now, these are harder than they look, especially to have that perfect form and to actually squeeze and contract the abs and the core. The goal here is, with the stabilization exercises, just work your way up so you can hold it longer and longer. Basically, you want to be able to do it for a minimum of 2 sets of 60-second holds if you're doing some kind of front plank variation. And then if it's a side plank variation, we want to be able to hold for 2 sets of 30 seconds on each side at a very minimum. Work your way up to 2 minutes in the front planks and 1 minute in the side planks, and then beyond. I don't really think there's much more benefit going any longer than like 3 minute holds, because then it's just like whatever, you're just holding a plank, you're strong enough. Let's work on something else, like maybe add a weight on your back or something like that, or move on to a more advanced exercise. For our level 5 dynamic stabilization exercise, we have cable split stance chop and horizontal cable chop. So now we're standing up and we're doing these cable chops, and that adds a little bit more difficulty to it, because when you're on your knees, you eliminate the lower body and take that out of the picture, so it's easier. Once you have the lower body in the picture, you're maintaining stability from head to toe, and it becomes a lot more difficult, a lot more challenging. If you do it right and with great form, you're going to get a lot of benefit. If you're feeling any pain, it's probably too advanced of an exercise for you, and you need to bump your way down. So I recommend spending about 4 to 6 weeks in each level before moving on to the level afterwards. The reason behind that is you want to master the basics, build that foundation, and then work your way up, build that foundation, work your way up, build that foundation, work your way up, and so on. On top of this, if you really want to accelerate your progress, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to do some full body workouts. Obviously, you're not just going to be training your core, and you're going to be wanting to do bigger compound lifts. So one of my favorite core exercises that isn't a core exercise would be deadlifts or rack pulls, squats, Bulgarian split squats. Those are all great core exercises that aren't core exercises, if that makes sense. Another great exercise, if we look at the exercises that I just told you about, this core stabilization and the core dynamic stabilization exercises, those are all based on endurance. But there is certain core exercises that aren't based on endurance, and one of them is the RKC plank. And what you're going to be doing is you're just holding a regular plank on the floor, but you want to contract your lats, you want to contract your quads, you want to contract your glutes. And when you contract all of those, your core starts firing like crazy. So if the other exercises are a marathon, this core exercise is a sprint. So it's basically that anaerobic maximal strength plank, and it works like crazy. It's one of my favorite core exercises. If you want to get strong in the core, that's definitely one that you're going to want to play into. And it doesn't matter what level you're at. If you're pre-level, this might be a bit harder, but once you can do a full plank for 2 sets of 60-second holds, you can start to implement this RKC plank, and it is awesome. Another core exercise that isn't actually a core exercise another exercise that I love for the core is kettlebell swings. So you wouldn't really think it's a core exercise, but it actually is, especially if you're stabilizing that core. The key here is you need to be able to do that hip hinge movement safely and properly. Another exercise that I really like are Turkish get-ups. If you have a kettlebell and you're using Turkish get-ups, those are great. It's a little bit more of an advanced movement. I would say after you've got to like level 4 or 5 on on the exercises that I just told you about. You can go onto the Turkish get-ups, and man, oh man, those are some great exercises when done correctly. So I just listed a crap ton of exercises for you. Play with them, work with them each level 4 to 6 weeks, work your way up, and you will have that amazing core. If you want to have that six pack and show it off, you're going to want to diet down and get leaner. If you need some help with that, just send me an email, jason@jmaxfitness.com, and we can talk about what program is best for you, or we can jump on a call and we can talk about online coaching if you're very serious about changing your body, because probably the fastest way to do so is with online coaching. I highly recommend it. So guys, I will talk to you guys next time. I am Jason Maxwell here from JMax Fitness.